Well, good morning. First to Hank and to Ellen, congratulations. And I think that it is an enormously important partnership focused in exactly the right way. And actually, as I listen to everyone talk about flexibility, one of the things that hits me is what is the gold standard. Now, Brent has obviously put one out there, and it sounds like Sloan is it. All of us, as we're working our way through this, need to have something to shoot for, so I'm glad that it is out there. Some of you might wonder, well, you know, why is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff here today? Actually, in one sense, it's a welcome break from Egypt, which has consumed a lot of us in the last few days, and that which is an incredibly serious issue. But more importantly, not unlike the other organizations that are represented here, the people are our absolutely most important resource. And we've said that the totality of my career. All of us who've led, whether in peace or in war, we know that. But what's happened over the course of the last 10 years is we have really moved to a much broader and deeper understanding of what that means. We're in our 10th year of war. Without the focus that we've had, and actually probably more important is the support of our families through extraordinarily difficult challenges, we would not be close to having been as successful as we have been in these very, very difficult times. And it's something that actually probably our families brought to us before we figured it out. And therein, at least from my perspective, lies a really important message. In my work around the world, I oftentimes talk about seeing problems through other people's eyes, trying to understand how this country or this region sees their challenges and sees the rest of the world. And what I've found over the course of the last decade, despite the focus that myself and my wife have had on this area forever, is unless I start to understand the challenges through families' eyes, I'm not going to be able, as a leader, to figure out what the right answers are. And time and again, even as recently as this week, you know, I had one of my leaders say, well, you know, I'll go out and do this, and it was tied to a family issue. And what I want to make sure is that the families go out and do this. And this was specifically tied to this announcement and rollout by President Obama and Mrs. Obama, I think week before last, focusing on military families and the challenges that we have, that they have. And actually, in the end, if we don't get that right, we will suffer greatly in terms of the kinds of issues that have already been mentioned, employment, retention, all those kinds of things. Because I can't tell you the number of young women that have come up to me over the course of the last 20 years and said exactly what Brent said, which is great place, love the work, but I'm going to go start a family. And that message is still out there, quite frankly. And we certainly recognize the requirement for flexibility, but we're not where we need to be. So the families have, I'm in the best military that has ever existed, and in great part because of our families, but we have got to continue to change. These families have been through an extraordinarily difficult time, and recognize, and one of the emerging issues in this understanding for me, we put a great deal of effort on spouses in particular. And we are at we're at the 70 to 80% dual career path, just like everybody else. It's a requirement as seen by families these days. But what is emerging is a requirement, from my perspective, to understand inside families much more the needs of children. And actually, it is a result of the stress that our kids are under because of the time that our people have been away. They've been without their fathers or their mothers. We've got 15-year-old kids, one of the ways I try to highlight this, who from the beginning of the time that they started to understand what their parents did, their whole life has been at war. I've got 18, 19-year-olds who were 10 when it started, now went off to college this year or last year, and don't really know their parents that well because mom or dad, mostly dad, has been away for at least 50% of that time in my teenage years. So I've got challenges with respect to their health, kids' health, military kids' health, their education, and we've got to, if we're going to keep these families in, which we absolutely have to do, we're going to have to reach in different places than we've reached in the past. And then lastly, so there are a tremendous number of changes which are taking place, which we have to address. And then lastly, a priority for me over the course of the last decade has been somehow we have to do all things in a home. Somehow we have to, from the military perspective, recognize that the center of that universe really isn't where I am. It's in the home. It's in the family environment. And so how do we take the family, take the individuals, and make them the center of the universe and create enough flexibility, opportunity, varied career paths to be able to sustain and continue to evolve. And we are in the middle of that. I'm delighted, and I know I wear this Navy uniform. As a chairman, I've almost been out of the Navy for the last 3.5 years. But the Navy has actually taken the lead on this in the services, and I'm delighted with, obviously, their focus on this. But I think all of our services have to do this. Otherwise, our retention is pretty good right now. Oftentimes, or actually it tracks very well historically with the economic challenges, fiscal challenges that we have. But we're going to get better. I know that. And we really need to be prepared when there are a lot of other options out there that aren't being taken right now because of the challenges that are going on in the country. And we have to be able to retain. People ask me about the future of our military. I only use one metric. We're the most combat-hardened, capable force we've ever been. And those young captains, those young 25 to 35-year-olds and majors and their families, if we keep the right ones in, our military is going to be fine for decades to come. And the opposite is true as well. And they have choices because they're so incredibly capable. So we've got to make sure we adjust institutionally in ways that we haven't adjusted in the past. And to include, at least from what I can see, this emerging requirement, not just to deal with spouse careers or spouse challenges, but it's the totality of what it means to raise a family these days. And understanding it oftentimes not from he or she who's been at work and is now making an adjustment for another career path for the spouse who's principally raised the kids, but in fact through the eyes of that home and that family and oftentimes that mother who is looking for more flexibility. And oftentimes the dad doesn't really understand that either. We need to listen to those who've been at home, and then how do we create the kind of flexibility and excellence that results in the kind of superb military that we have today. And this is not, it is an imperative for us. This is a strategic imperative for our country. So I applaud the work, certainly look forward to learning from organizations who've clearly succeeded in this as we continue our way through this. Thank you. If you've been in the business, the focus on human resources, I don't need to even tell you who's next. It's Ted Childs. And many of you have known Ted for a long time. I've only had the privilege of knowing him for the last few years, 5 or 6 years. Extraordinary individual, passionate, evocative, but probably more so provocative. And when he's on to something, he won't let go. He got onto this a long time ago. He will never let this go. So somebody I have great regard for and listen to frequently in terms of these kinds of initiatives. And I think of all that I have met, there's nobody that feels more strongly about it nor made the kind of difference that Ted Childs has made in people's lives across the board. So, Ted, great to have you.